We are all, see, gallows humor.
We just can't get off on thing.
Okay.
And I'm not being
So
pretentious.
we are
Number is low, so which one died?
actually for our board meetings, when I was in New York, I had my personal laptop and my work laptop. It works beautifully. So I will take on the pretentious mantle.
This is the only meeting I'm willing to carry this. Because the agenda with the packet.
And just let me know when you want me to start recording.
Oh, I'm ready when you are.
Oh, okay, hold on 1 second. We're going to start recording, everyone.
Thanks, Shelley. Welcome, everybody. We will call our executive committee of the Citizens Association of Santa Clara County meeting to order at 2:10 p.m. Glad to see everybody here and healthy. Shelley, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Lisa Flagger,
Here.
Larry Klein,
Present.
Tina Loya,
Here.
hi,
Here.
Margaret Abikoga. We have quorum, everybody's here.
Thank you, Shelley. And then any public comments, either online or in person on non-agendized items?
No one online.
No. Okay, next, first agenda item or consent item, which is our minutes from our last exec committee meeting on March 22nd. Any questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Walia, seconded by Way.
Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Walia, second by Way. Oh, I don't need to take roll.
Just all.
Perfect, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And then for president's update, I do have one announcement and then an idea I'm going to run by all of you now. Well, I'll mention it now and we can further discuss it when we do the board agenda for next week. And so the great news is, so we have our June social event on Thursday 13th at 7 p.m. It will be here in our Grand Oak Room. And so Tina will have her LAC meeting in here at 5:30, and then obviously they'll join us in the Grand Oak Room at 7. We have a co-sponsor. So the topic for the event is mental health. And how we as cities can help to address the mental health crisis. Mariko is helping me. Everybody knows Mariko Sayon, and she's executive director for CASCC, so very relevant work that she does. So she's available on board, and we're trying to find other speakers to work with the format we're talking about. But the good news is, and I know we have to work with our attorneys on this, like they did with Mark last year with SBCE, but we have a co-sponsor, El Camino Health. It's going to co-sponsor full food, beverage, everything. So we don't have to charge our members anything, which is great. And so we'll do the same thing we did last year with SVCE. They just need to know, they just want us to tell them what to do, how we want to do it. And of course, they'll have a representative there to share about the work they're doing in our communities on mental health. So it's a nice synergy. No. And I love when we don't have to charge our members. But speaking of charging our members, so I just got back from the Cal Cities Leaders Summit, and one of the sessions I went to talked about like happiness and volunteerism and how post-COVID a lot of cities are now being intentional about happiness and doing things in their communities. And one of the cities showed that they had this like inspirational sign event where they had different signs put up all over the city. And it gave me the idea of we should do something like that across our county. So think about this. We come up with, so for example, and it would be tied to mental health. So be healthy, happy. So we come up with things we would have on these signs. There are so many Santa Clara County cities that touch El Camino. We could just have the signs along the median touching all our cities. And for the cities that don't touch El Camino, they would have their own 10 signs. And so in the uniform, you'd have the Cities Association at the bottom saying, we're sponsoring this mental health initiative. I want to do it before these fall campaigns kick off again with their signs. So the idea, and I talked to a couple of people there, and we know, I mean, from campaign signs, at least I know if you want more expensive, signs that will withstand rain and wind, they may get a little bit more expensive, but I was talking to someone and I looked it up too. There's some signs you can get, of course, we have to use labor, but there's some signs we can get as cheap as 89 cents to like $1.25. Double-sided, online. Yes, he showed me. So we need to look at the cost of this. But let's assume for the 15 cities, we decide to do 10 signs per city. That's 150 signs. Worst case, let's say each sign is $3. Worst case, like, I mean, there are signs I saw that are less than that, but $3 or $5. I don't want your input. We're still looking at a budget of maybe $500, as opposed to what we would have spent on the event with El Camino covering it. So the idea is we kick this off, and it's a cities association initiative across the county. We have these positive signs all around our cities. It's uniform, right? All our cities have the sign. El Camino, you're driving along, oh, there's the same sign. There's the same sign, and it goes all the way through. So I'm excited about it. I hope I can get your support. So if I have your support as part of the June 6th agenda item for the board, we would ask for authorization, and I would ask for up to $1,000, even $1,000. Because we don't know how much these signs are going to cost, for us to do this. And then we'd work with Gabe and Shali to make it happen. So I want to get thoughts, questions. Go ahead, Tina.
I know you will take public comment, but I'd like to get my motion in there right now. I fully support it. I love the idea. And I really like hearing 15 cities. We need to reach out to Gilroy as well right now.
Yeah.
And this is a message for a unified voice across the county. And just the word happiness and volunteerism, that itself tells me, whichever words we choose.
Yeah, just be happy. You're driving up El Camino. Just imagine those. And I'm not a designer.
Is it possible at all for us? I don't, maybe asking for too much to get it done before the June event?
That's my goal.
Okay, perfect.
So we'll
Love it.
tie in toward, yes, and before these fall, candidates
Yeah.
start putting up their
Yeah,
signs.
but before the June event is even a more powerful voice.
Yes.
I'm just super excited.
Me too.
And we do banner signs, different organizations in each city, so everybody you're paying.
Right.
Banner in the middle of medians or what. We spent, when I was on the planning commission, not important directly, we spent 9 months, our planning commission 10 years ago, sorting out signs, where they go in the city.
No.
I'm not an expert, but I know, but the point is the sign, we were doing the sign ordinance.
Oh.
So I'm just thinking immediately because of that, I have some sense which sign goes where, small, da.
And I'll tell you, when I was sitting in the section at Cal Cities, initially I was thinking that would be good to do it, and then I was like, wait a minute. Like it kind of, I was like, we should do this countywide. Margaret, Larry, Hong.
I will second that, I totally support it. And I think that's the weird awareness that people will see, and it's across board. This is public image.
Yeah.
It's just one city, but it's the whole city. I think people will pay attention, like, what's going on, right? Yeah.
And it's tying into our public health initiative.
Yeah.
For
So-
cities association.
Yes, and mental health.
Yeah.
And we'll have to, we have a PIO, I'm sure. We also have PIO, and Sonia is amazing with, we would keep it simple. I don't
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like even 4 things on all 150 sides. So it's simple. Be happy, be healthy, be. Larry?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's, there's a whole issue about El Camino and signs, but I can't remember what our sign ordinance allows. So where you put it in the city, it's a nice idea to put it at El Camino.
Just
being
picture
said.
Yeah.
It might be, it's like I can think of some better places for Sunnyvale to put it, but yeah, makes sense. No, I like the idea.
Yeah, that was my only thing, is I know, Caltrans, so we might have to get permission from them. Are we looking at like the lawn signs or?
But smaller, not like our campaign signs, but a smaller version, and it doesn't have to be, double-sided. But like one of the websites the city showed me was, and they're in your, I don't know, so as you know, for campaigns, but we normally try to use labor.
Yeah.
And for these, I'm sure they're not, right? 'Cause so that's something we'd have to consider.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy.
Yeah.
And if it's small enough, I don't think sign ordinance kind of different.
It's under.
With yeah, well.
And it would be
yeah.
In the
smaller
public-
than a
anything
yard
in the
sign.
public right
Let the
of way.
city put it that, so.
Yeah, each city would get their 10.
Yeah, right.
And they figure out, I like the El Camino, maybe we can check with Caltrans, because I was picturing driving along El Camino and just seeing the signs in the median, if it's possible. And then you could have Gabe talk to the city managers too, so they're on board.
Yeah.
But so the idea is we'd ask the board for authority to give us $1,000, it's not that, but hopefully we don't spend all of it.
Yeah, up to that.
Up to 1,000 on, 150 signs.
We budgeted 3,000 for the June event.
I know,
So
El
you need
Camino,
it?
right. And you know what, honestly, I think if I asked John to help us with this, I won't. I think he would even contribute to the signs, but John Cullen,
Oh.
the he's government relations for El Camino. So let me check in with the attorney for public comment. Any comments on doing this initiative?
I think you captured all the concerns that Andrew and I were sharing with each other.
Caltrans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sign ordinances, location, permission, all of those things. And then El Camino, it's El Camino Healthcare District, that would be the sponsor.
So to be honest, so there are two different bodies. I actually served on both boards. There are two different bodies. John serves as the government relations for both. And he said yes, but I don't know, because they both have different funds for these types of things where they co-sponsor. He can pull from either board, but I don't know which one he's thinking. I
Okay,
can find out.
okay, that would be great. Some clarity on that because it might affect the analysis.
If there's one that's easier, let me know.
We can do that.
If
Because I
it-
assume that one would be a foundation, a charitable organization, and then the other one would be the healthcare district, which is also nonprofit, but it's a governmental entity. So those are kind of the
Yeah.
issues that we were keying in on. Okay, we can let you know that.
Talk to John, you send an email, and their attorney, I know Teresa, she can talk to you guys. You may know Teresa. Okay.
So, what is the motion?
There is no motion.
There's no.
There's no motion, that's later. I just want to make the announcement in front of the update. Yeah. So that's my update. Any public comment on update online or in person?
No one online.
Because it's not an agendized item to.
Right, it will be part of our agenda for the next meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Six B, it'll be part of 6B.
Okay, this is, lawn or sign, or it's like 2 to 3 weeks usually lead time, so,
Yeah, it's tight.
yeah, tight, so.
Right. So if they approve it, assuming we have enough votes next Thursday, then we'd have to get on it by the Friday.
But then who will choose the wording? That's
Yeah,
where.
I'm not
The city's thing.
Yeah, I know Sonia is good if someone has a better, not a better, but if, I can get Sonia. Yeah.
Forget it.
It's fine, it's just that, I'm glad Margaret also drawing that's the timeline for it.
Yeah, so the lead time for signs, as we know, is 2 to 3 weeks. I'll work with Shali. Let's see if the board approves it next week and then we go from there.
I'll add that to the board agenda then, or? Yeah.
When we get to 6B.
Okay, now for the main item of our meeting, the JPA bylaws. Thank you all so much for inputs from your city and all the work that we've done to date. I am going to turn it over to Andrew and Jenny to lead this item. And everybody understands our role. Here's the executive committee. We're going to go through all the suggested edits, discuss them, decide, what we're going to include. We're going to include we're going to show the board all the suggested edits. But if there are things that we think for reasons we know that the board may not know that they shouldn't be included, that's the kind of discussion we would have here.
While they're bringing that up, just a quick FYI for everyone. When I spoke with the city manager way ahead of the deadline, he was very clear that as JPA, and I may have conveyed this to you, Lisa, that as a JPA, he felt it's not appropriate for Saratoga to be suggesting what violence. That was his pick, I asked. I'm just sharing with you what he said. Right? So that's why, but not because I ignored it or he ignored it. He had this clear position that the JPA is to the JPA to decide bylaws.
So
I'll leave
it
it at that.
is,
Yeah.
so it is.
I
We
know.
were yeah,
I know, I'm
technically he's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and therefore, no comments from Saratoga. That's the reason.
So then I'll kick it off. Andrew and I we organized how we wanted to approach it, but we didn't decide who would go first. So since I'm the chattier of the two, I'll go first.
We can take turns.
So we've kind of put things in two buckets. We've looked at all of the feedback that we've gotten both during the process and then of adopting the JPA, and then recently from the agencies. And we feel that they go into two buckets. One is really clarification and more administrative details to make the document a better document. And we weren't going to spend a lot of time on those today unless you would like to, because we feel confident that we know how to include those in the document without changing the document in a way that you wouldn't want us to. So I think first it would help to get clarification if you're okay if we proceed in that manner.
Tina?
I'm fine with that, so long as we address, one of the questions asked, which for me is more than administrative, which is anything covered in the JPA description should not be brought forward into the bylaws, because then somebody can be tempted down the road to make the changes in the bylaws. But then there's one bit, which I forget now, which is not in the JPA. So most likely may get added in the bylaws, but standing alone. That's the only thing, however you want to handle this. I just want to bring that up.
And then we're of like mind because we would like to remove the provisions that are duplicative. For example, the restructure the name, purpose, and powers in Article 1, and then remove all of the purposes that are already in the JPA. Let's make it a simpler document. Let's avoid any confusion by having the same provisions in two documents.
We're, not, heads are nodding, we agree.
You're very far away. You're very far away, so we can see you, but okay, so then the second bucket is really those things that we feel we need direction about how to address the bylaws, how to address the issue in the bylaws, and then what options. Oh, I like that. That's better. Because there may be things where you want us to present, here are the two options, and maybe you want us to put both options in, or you're just going to, the way that it was set up, to my understanding, and Andrew will correct me, and I know that Nisa and Charlie will as well, is that they appointed you as the committee. You are to prepare a draft for their review and approval. So it may be simpler to just pick the option that you like best, and we present that. And as we work through it, we can see if there aren't certain occasions where you might want to give them two choices.
So Jenny, you're correct. I think the approach that expected and we approved was, for example, if for some sections there are more than one options, we as the subcommittee would recommend what the option we think makes sense for whatever reason. But we also said to the board, we would show them everything. So I still want to show them that for section 3, item A, these were the two suggested things. The executive committee is recommending this because of X, Y, Z. Like, I want full disclosure for the board on the things we considered, but then also our recommendation and why. And I know there were a couple of instances where we could go different directions for us to decide how we want to do it and then recommend it. And they may disagree with us. Yeah. The super majority on like their thing. Yeah.
And then maybe at the end, we can talk about what documents we will present to the board. For example, think as we go through this about doing a strikeout or just a clean version, but we can decide that at the end. So Andrew, I've talked a lot. Do you want to do the first issue that in Article 2 about membership?
Sure, absolutely. So, should I show the documents? I don't know if you can see things if I share the screen.
Oh,
Yeah. And are you gonna go section by section?
I can, or I don't know exactly. I don't know if you have the Los Altos Hills comments in front of you, but those are the comments we received on Article 2 regarding membership.
Yeah.
And Los Altos Hills had requested.
Andrew, let's do article by article. So let's start at the top and do Article 1. Were there any comments related to Article 1? Then Article 2, any comments related? Let's just go through it like that.
Okay, right. So Article
If
1,
Tina has a-
sure. So Article 1, the question was, or the comment we received is something that we've already touched on, and that is whether we need to repeat essentially what the JPA agreement already sets forth in terms of the names and powers of the organization. And so one of the jurisdictions that said we don't need to duplicate all that is Santa Clara. But I think we received direction from the executive committee on that issue. Other than that, we didn't have any substantive comments in Article 1.
Andrew, thank you, and I agree with no need to repeat, but I have a question on 3F. One is 3F. F
3M?
for Frank.
Oh, sorry. F.
To
Got
assist
it.
in development.
F for Frank. To assist in development of statewide legislative policy through the structure of the League of California Cities. So
Uh-huh.
2 questions. Is it, I haven't double checked, is it already in the JPA? Because somewhere
it's
I read that this was not. It's not. That's what
No,
the
it's-
comment I remember reading in this draft. So if
Yeah,
we're
it's a-
removing everything, that would this stand alone? That's one question. The second question is, if we do that, do we want to still call it League of California Cities versus Cal Cities? Because League is now called Cal Cities.
Yeah.
So those are my 2 questions. Will it be
Yes.
standing on its own? And would it look weird in the bylaws then?
Yeah, so my understanding is that's a legacy of the unincorporated associations bylaws. And you may recall that the unincorporated association was sort of think of a kind of a spin-off of the League of Cities chapter for the peninsula. And so I think that's just an artifact, and we can remove it regardless of the larger issue about whether you duplicate the agreement or not. I think it just doesn't need to be there either way. Does that
And I
answer the
think
question?
thanks, Andrew. I actually think that's a discussion for the executive committee. I know Margaret and Larry are familiar with this way back, like we have that connection with the Cal Cities. My understanding is Cal Cities no longer plays that role that we had originally envisioned. So for example, Seth, the executive director, explained to both of us that there was a time where like they had a standing item, like he present at the meeting, because I think there was a more connected relationship. We can either decide to take it out or leave it. It's dormant, like we haven't been doing anything directly. Thoughts? Leave it, don't ruffle any feathers, because, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine leaving it. It's even if that, maybe that relationship will revive, but for now it's fine.
Okay, and that
No,
works.
Can
like the
I point
idea.
out, can I point out one of the, in terms of aligning the bylaws with the existing joint powers agreement, when that was drafted, and it has 13 reasons why it exists, its creation and its purposes. It doesn't have that in it. So Andrew and I were amenable to, and obviously maybe this is an area where we need direction from the executive committee, is we thought we might as well take out the entire purpose section in the bylaws because it's in the JPA. So it's a repeat of that, which was something that a couple of cities raised. Why are you repeating it in 2 things? Now, what's weird then is that F, this section that we're talking about, to assist in the development of statewide legislation, it's not in the JPA. So if we were just thinking we would remove section 3.
Jenny, thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's essentially what my question was. That's how I interpreted the memo that Andrew sent. And when we remove the redundancy, to me, Article 1 by the proposed bylaws that we are discussing, Article 1, Section 3 would have only 1 line there when we remove everything else, because everything else is in the JPA. That was my question number 1. And question 2 was, if we do retain it, then change the name to Cal Cities. But the overall question was, is that the only thing that will suddenly show up in the purpose in the bylaws? Because everything else as a purpose is in the JPA agreement.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
maybe what we should do, so I agree. So let's get rid of the get rid of the purpose section because it's in the JPA, it's housed in the JPA. But I think what we should do is look to see if there's another section in the bylaws where we could mention Cal Cities as a potential partner. Because I do think politically, we should have, if possible, like mention them at the end, like, you know, we'll work with some other section. I don't think it should be in the JPA and we're not touching the JPA, but let's maybe do a little footnote saying if there's a way to incorporate mentioning Cal Cities somewhere, we should do that.
Is there a place that we mention the county as another partner? Maybe we mention it with the county, wherever that's.
Okay, so as we go through the articles, let's see if there's a section where it would make sense to put them.
I like that because essentially now what we are saying is Article 1, Section 3 purpose, the whole section will be removed and we are holding on to 3F to be incorporated elsewhere in the bylaws. Okay, I like that.
I do think there's a real
That
opportunity
was my own.
when we get to the Legislative Advocacy Committee, because we will be spending some time on that. And I think that would be an area where we could insert something.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was my only question on Article 1. Thank you.
Back to you, Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for reference, I think that area when we get to it would be Article 6, where we talk about the various committees, including the LAC. And we will just try to keep that in mind. Okay, Article 2, membership. So this was the comment that we received from Los Altos Hills about whether we should provide any further clarification about associate members. The agreement provides that associate members can obviously join the city's association, and whether we should specify a little bit more of that process, especially about how that associate member could potentially pay dues. I don't know if that's something that we feel like we need to address at this point, or we could certainly deal with it later if that becomes more of a possibility for the organization. If it'd be helpful, I can also show you the Article 32.
You can share your screen, Andrew, if you'd like.
Yeah. Okay, let me show you Article 32 of the agreement, which addresses associate members. Maybe that'd be helpful. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what he's pulling up. Is he pulling up the GP? No, he's pulling up the bylaws. Article.
Hopefully you can all see that now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Article 32, associate members.
Yeah.
So you can see that we obviously the agreement provides for this option going forward, and says specifically that with respect to an associate membership fee or dues, those could be specified in bylaws. The draft bylaws that you have before you don't address associate members specifically. So I don't know if you want us to venture that territory now, or as another option, we could always deal with that when an associate member sort of presents itself down the road.
From a bylaws standpoint, don't we need to? I guess it's here. No, never mind. I guess we don't need to. I was just wondering from a bylaw standpoint whether or not we need to bring anything up about associate members beyond, that from a general bylaw standpoint, that this is relatively light as far as, okay, it's just not voting or not entitled to representation on the board of directors. Since we don't really have them, don't worry about it. Yeah.
So, I guess I was thinking that maybe we should, because it's been an ongoing question, but what do we do with Santa Clara County? in the past, I think had been members and, you know, it's always helpful to have their the membership fees. So if we figure this out, then we can actually even go out and invite agencies to join us if they'd like to.
But we also have to define, especially if they start paying fees, what role will they have? Are they gonna be a non-voting fee-paying member? So they're paying fees, they can attend our meetings anyway. Like what benefit will they
Right, and
derive, apart from the signs we're gonna give them for mental health? But, so for me, so I agree with where I thought Larry was going, which is I think we need to address something about associate membership in the bylaws. I think that's where we would develop what it looks like, who would qualify. And maybe for now, in the bylaws, Jenny and Drew, under Article 2, we add a Section 3, associate members, and we put language there that essentially says, you know, as applications or interests are indicated, then we will work with the agency, because I think the fee will also depend on the size of the entity, their role. So I actually think we should address that. We have a process. We will have a process to onboard new associate members, but I do think there should be a section in the bylaws for associate members, so it's silent.
I mean, we can easily come up with something that is not repetitive, but kind of restates this. You can't be an associate member unless the board approves a written agreement and you pay a fee. I mean, we can come up with something that public agencies can apply. And in order to become a member, you would need to execute an agreement approved by the board.
Yeah, I would just
I like
highlight,
that. Does that,
I do agree with that. I would just highlight that in terms of Los Altos Hills comment, they were most interested in the potential fee component of becoming an associate member, which is what I think a lot of people would be curious about. And I don't know whether we have, at this time, thoughts about what that fee structure would look like for a potential associate member.
But that's why I was saying, Andrew, that as part of the language that you and Jenny would draft, it would say, you know, certain factors would be considered to determine the fee. Because it wouldn't be a set fee. We could say size, role, like come up with certain criteria that we would put in the bylaws to show that it's not a one size fits all. So we can't put a fee in there. These are the considerations in determining the fee. Shali.
And we also agreed that we would not put the membership fee formula in the bylaws.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Because another city said they wanted us to put the membership fees, and I don't think we're going to recommend doing that.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
Yes.
I was thinking about Gilroy. And so what would be the benefits of associate membership over full membership? Because what if you're a city like Gilroy or a city that's undergoing a budget crunch? Like, well, we don't want to be a full membership. We'll just be an associate member. Like it wouldn't,
But
what would be the benefit of one over the other?
Sorry, I just want to, but what would an associate member be able to do or not do that an existing full member is? I'm not clear on. They can sit in meetings.
I have two thoughts. One is each city in the county, this is a cities association. Each city has to be a member and maybe define under associate members who can apply to be an associate member, thereby taking out the possibility of a city, number one. Number two, thank you for bringing that up. I had not thought of that question. The other one is sorry, lost my train.
So
one is
I don't-
removing,
I don't mean to interrupt, but should I show you the definition of associate member as well? That might be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, so associate members explicitly excludes cities. So
Oh,
We already have that in the JPA. Yes, we need a refresher on the JPA.
Yeah.
We all love
Hey.
that.
I understand. Janie and I spent a lot of time flipping back and forth through this agreement over the past week.
Thank you, Andrew. I read it at midnight last night and I did read it, but I can't remember everything.
No, I
so
completely
thank
understand. Yeah, so section
you.
1.1, hopefully you can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Nonsense.
I can try to make it a little bit larger too.
So, Janet, I trust your drafting skills. So, you know, and the fees language would be, you know, factors that we would consider including but not limited to. So that kind of language for that section 3 of Article 2.
Okay, so I understand that we're
So
sort
does
of
that
covering
mean-
some of the basics and then including criteria for fees for associate members.
Because that was the office's, yes. I mean, that's my suggestion, I'm open.
Yeah, I'm just thinking aloud here, and associate member cannot vote, we know that, they don't have a voting thing on the board. And do we want less fee from them or more? Because whoever is asking the dues question for an associate member, my guess would be, if I were in their shoes, my thought would be, do we want them to pay more to be an associate member? Or they're just asking a question?
What do
I
they
see
get?
them as like, what do we call them, like a.
I think that
No,
fundamental,
they can put on their resume, associate member.
They get a discount.
Margaret has a good idea, discount for events where we charge.
So we're not
Sorry, you're getting a member fee.
Okay.
Well, holiday party, you would get the member.
Andrew, I'm trusting you'll move us along, because we'll keep talking, but go
well,
ahead, Jen.
but I think Andrew and I think this is a challenge for Andrew and I. So I think it would be helpful if we could just clarify. So an associate member can't be represented on the board and they don't get a vote unless the agreement says that, right? So what is the benefit of being an associate member? Because it sounds to me like we need to have some benefit, right?
But they could go, so, going back to this, so, the county used to have this title,
Apparently, yes.
right? So that's where it originated from. The bad thing is, guys, we put it in the JPA, so we're stuck with it. So that's where it originated. And I think it's really the idea of a partner public agency that supports our efforts, like SBCE, the county, ABAG, maybe, FTC. Right, you know, it's really them supporting, so it's on them where they want to support our mission, so they're giving us fees. It's not a benefit to them, it's them showing they support us.
And we get some money.
Oh, we don't get some money.
Because they get to say they're, Gabe, thoughts, you know, they're really.
It's typically an agency that gets benefits without being a member, so the holiday parties, the meetings, things like that, I wouldn't get to vote. I could see an organization having benefit to some of those.
They could also have like, you know, time on our agenda when we.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Or, you know, yeah.
Yeah, so
But I
for
know-
events, they would have, if, you know, if they want to speak at our, would have a standing on it, like, if the county becomes an associate member, Steve comes to all our meetings, but this time we'd put him like right after executive director and city manager, we put county as an associate member.
I was thinking, we're not very tight about public comment. So for people like Steve, Steve can speak up anytime he wants during the meeting. And so, sorry.
It's that official affiliation.
I agree.
When you want to be a member, whether it's official or associate member, it's that official affiliation, and you're part of the organization. Yeah, I think that matters.
Do you have enough, Jenny and Andrew, for us to move on?
One last.
Yeah, I
One
think
last
so.
thought coming from Tina.
Okay.
I'm thinking of this, not even thinking, I'm just throwing this idea out, a crazy scenario where we have 20 public agencies
Yep,
that want to take benefits.
Yep.
To have access to all at the events, you have the whole county, every city's city council member. Do we want to, essentially what I'm saying is, do we want to put a cap either to how many number of associate members we can have, or think of the events they're getting subsidized rates? I'm just throwing that question out there.
the events are not big money makers.
Okay,
So,
fine.
like 75 versus 50.
Okay,
Right, and I think as part application vetting process, if we really are looking at an application from the 10th county that wants to join us, we're like, we're not gonna do it. Right.
But to Tina's point, I wouldn't want 20 associate members on our agenda to give it up.
We would manage, we would manage, and they're not coming to our meeting.
Okay. I just wanted to get the question out there.
Yeah,
That's good.
or Jenny, Andrew.
I don't mean to cut anyone off, but should I go to the next article?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, great.
Yes, you do.
So Article 3, Board of
While you're doing
Directors.
that, everybody-
Sorry?
It's in,
Oh, does he have it?
So, yeah, so Andrew, I was saying while you're pulling that up, I just wanted to tell the executive committee and Bybee's comment, it's in the agenda packet. Page
Oh, that's great.
6
That's exactly where I'm going next.
on the agenda packet.
Perfect timing,
Okay,
Shelley.
perfect.
Perfect, yeah. So just for the sake of completeness, I don't believe in Article 3 we received any substantive comments. Janie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can go on to Article 4. Maybe I'll do this one and hand it off to you the next few. So the Article 4 one, the first one we received was the one that Shelley just distributed. And so this was the suggestion from Ann Bybee. And if it's helpful, I can also show you her email, but maybe you just have the hard copy already. Is that right? I can't
Yeah,
tell what
it's
people
in the
have.
agenda
Should I share the
packet.
screen, Shelley, or what's better for folks in the room?
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
I have to go back and forth, I'm lost.
Yeah.
I read it. I don't know where.
That's the nominating committee.
Saw it.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so this is Ann Bybee's email, Councilmember Bybee's email. So I don't know if you can see, it might be a little bit too small, but her specific addition change or is what follows the add colon, which is at least one member of the nominating committee. So this section 6 regarding nominating committees is already in the draft. Her addition would be at least one member of the nominating committee shall be a board member who's not currently on the exec committee.
Used to have that. I don't know where it fell off.
So it's a somewhat subtle change to the nominating committee structure.
Larry, Margaret.
What has been your
I
experience?
always thought it was this way, so, yeah, I'm surprised it's not in there, it should have been in there.
I think
Oh,
it's changed somewhere over the last number of years. Yeah.
And the thing with 3, that's quorum for us. So that's a Brown Act meeting. So it really should 2 executive committee, even if we don't do Ann's edits, it should be 2 executive committee members. And it's nice doing an odd number.
I like being a board member.
Or maybe we give an associate member a role there.
No, that's-
To, Margaret and Larry's point, that it used to be there, maybe that's why Anne remembers. Because she's been around, being a city clerk earlier, she has the historical perspective. Maybe that's why she's the one who fixed that up.
We're all supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jenny, Andrew,
Okay.
change it to 2 executive committee members here.
So take Councilmember Bybee's comment.
How will we select the, non-executive committee member? We need to think that.
Right now, it's just,
How do we select any?
A board,
they're appointed by the
no
president.
board vote.
So it's the president, I
Right.
thought, that.
The president appoints.
Yeah.
So this is just a limitation on the president's appointment power, although
And it doesn't even have to, I don't think, be 2 exec committee members, it could be the president and 2 board members. I don't think it's required that the other one is an exec committee.
I think it's good to have 2 be executive committee members. Like the president and another. So president, another executive. committee.
One of the VPs. and-
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're choosing,
Yeah.
and conceivably the president could say the 2 VPs
And not be part of
and
it.
not be part of it.
Yeah.
That's just as good. But I think 2 and 1 make more sense.
Yeah, so the president shall appoint 2 executive committee members and an executive committee member.
oh, so we're making that additional change then. Okay.
We're going to address
Well,
her
for
comment.
recommendation, they can.
Uh-huh.
Wait, are we just taking our language or are we taking your language that you just proposed, Nisa?
I think we're accepting the suggestion from Anne, but also modifying how it's currently drafted to say the president shall appoint 3 members to the nominating committee consisting of 2 executive members and 1 non-executive committee member.
Okay.
Actually not support that because, one of my criticisms was the exec committee would have too much power or perceived power.
Right.
So I actually would leave it this way, so it's open.
We don't make it 2, so the board, you president, you're saying, I feel, so we can discuss, so I actually think it's better, right, so let's discuss and do a majority or more recommendation. So Margaret is suggesting that leave it as is, where the president actually could appoint 3 board members, or 1 executive committee, 2 board members. The suggested change I am making, in addition to Anne's suggestion, is the president shall appoint 3 members to the nominating committee, consisting of 2 executive members and 1 non-executive committee member. I think in practice, that's what we used to do. We've been select cells, right? We've selected executive committee members. And we're actually, right?
Right, and with 1 board member, 1 non-executive. But, you know, it's just this, it's minor, but it's one way of trying to get non-exec committee members involved. And I mean, I would say leave it so at least 1, the president, or, you know, the president could vote to appoint 1 exec committee member, but leave the other 2 up to, so it could be 2, but it could be 2 regular board members.
Could be the president could appoint 3 members and at least 1 executive, up to 2 executive, you know, so it's 1 and 2, not 0 and 3.
So 1 executive committee member and 1 non-exec committee board member would be the requirement. And then that,
Yeah, or up to 2 executive. You have to say up to 2 executive board members, or it can be all 3. Yeah, so. I think that would work. It's more flexible. I can see
So
that.
at least 1 each executive committee and non-executive committee.
that's how I would.
Yes, and then it's up to the president if that 3rd person is a non or an executive.
Correct.
So the president is appointing, it's not going to.
The president may decide not to be on
So
it.
there are 2 parts. The
Yeah.
president appoints at least 1 executive committee and 1 non-executive committee
Yes.
each.
The 3rd one could be open to
And that's
anyone.
up to the president.
Okay.
So Andrew, I think we're of consensus.
Okay, I would not sure if I quite caught the
Did we
consensus.
So I'm gonna leave the language drafting to you, but essentially 3 members on the nominating committee, 1 executive, 1 non-executive. The 3rd is up to the president appoints all 3.
Okay, so point 3, at least 1 must be executive committee member, 1 must be non-executive committee member.
Yep. I think we will use Anne's language and then just add the same requirement for an
Yeah,
executive
we're
committee member. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
got it.
So the other,
Presenting it, Jenny, on Thursday, Jenny and Andrew, in presenting it on Thursday, I would echo what Margaret said, that, you know, based on feedback where we heard last year that the executive committee had all this power, this is one way we're addressing it. And just to, you know, recognize that we heard that feedback from last year.
Do you want to jump in when we present that, or do you want us to say that?
I'm happy to. Or
Okay.
you know what, I may do an overview at the beginning and say things like that.
And I'll sit right next to you and I'll jab you in the side if you don't remember.
she'll jab gently.
She sits next to me, so she pulled my jacket.
Oh, I love that shit. Jenny.
See, I'll sit on the other side.
I forget it's part of the thing, right?
So maybe I should finish up
Jenny
this
won't
section.
forget.
Is it okay if I proceed to
Yes,
another
yeah.
comment on this section? Okay. So our own executive committee member, Hong Wei, suggested another edit to this section. I don't know if you want to speak to it, or whether you would prefer that I do. Okay. So this is actually a pretty subtle change, but a pretty important one, and this is about who may be designated as an officer. So this is a great comment.
Well, last time I mentioned that too, because I'm not on the board, but I am the secretary, treasurer, and that language says it has to be appointed from the board. So I just said by the board instead of from, because
Right.
it's from, then I'm not part of it. But it is okay because the article does say, except, committee needs to have 2/3 to be on the board, and you can have someone. Great.
Right, and this would be a very subtle but very important change to section 1 under Article 4, which currently says the officers are selected from the board, but as was just pointed out, it should say by the board.
And it also, it corresponds and aligns with Article 10 of the JPA.
Yes.
Is it clear somewhere that the officers will be city council members from member things? That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Just to confirm,
It
when we move it,
It says of the officers, the president and at least 2 other officers must also be members of the board of directors. The remaining officers may be elected or appointed mayor or council member of any member of the agency, regardless of whether they are on the board of directors. So it's already there. So we just need to align it.
But just to make sure I understand the question, were you asking whether we should also specify in the bylaws they need to be council members or mayors?
okay, so Jani, I trust you. Did I hear from you that in the JPA it says very clearly that all officers have to be city council members, basically? Okay, good.
Well,
That was my
I
only
mean,
question. Thanks.
it does and it doesn't, but it addresses, there's a minimum requirement. A certain number of the officers have to be on the board of directors. As long as that requirement's met, the other.
Tina. Last minute.
No, I have a question, Jenny. My question is, I'm talking bylaws, Article 4, Section 1. I agree with the word change proposed by Hung Wei that Andrew said. Officers shall be selected by the board of directors. Fine. My question is, by making change, are you opening it up to a non-city council member from a member city to be part of this executive committee? Because I can't double check the JPA.
No.
My
Article
question is
10
again, let me repeat.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No, Article 10 of the JPA, if you read the entire section, you have to be a council member, and some council members, a council member can be an officer, but not a board member, but you have to be a council member.
Okay, perfect. That was my only question. Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
All right, and I think that's it for Article 4. Janie, do you want to take over on Article 5?
Okay.
Let me know if you want me to bring anything up on the screen, if that's helpful.
Yes, because you are, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So the voting requirements, and I think Nisa can speak to this too, is under meetings, Section 4 is voting, which says it's a majority of the members of the board have to be present for action to be taken, right? And it has to be a majority vote. And then when you read Section 9.4 of the JPA, it
Do you want me
says,
to, do you want me to call
Yes.
it 9.4? Okay,
that would be terrific,
absolutely.
because it's a little wordy. It's slightly different than a majority of the board, right? It's a majority of the quorum who are present and voting at the meeting is what constitutes the vote requirement. So I wanted to double check, because for Los Altos, that was an issue.
So again, my council looked at the bylaws, and if you look at Section 3 defining quorum, it says a majority of the members of the board of directors shall constitute quorum to do business at any such regular meeting. And so the question came up, let's say we don't have all 14 there. And a vote was taken, like I said, let's say 10 of the 14 are there and 6 vote in favor of something and 4 against it. Would that pass even though 6 isn't a majority of the quorum of the board? And so my council, can't remember if it was unanimous or 4-1, I don't know if I voted against it, to be honest. But my council, majority or more of us, suggested that we make it majority of the members of the board of directors. So even if only 10 people show up, my council wants 8 to pass action.
But as I read the JPA, that's not the voting requirement.
JPA overrides.
Yes.
Yeah.
It should be always.
But I will tell you, and I didn't remember about the JPA either. They were solely looking at the bylaws. So when they made the suggestion, I took it. But then Johnny pointed out to me last week that this isn't the JPA. So it's overridden. We're good. We can't make that change in the bylaws. Even though I do think we should tighten up section 3, but just to make it clear, but for voting.
So
Okay.
this one says unless otherwise, I'm reading the document you have up there, Andrew. It says at the end of 9.4, which is on starting page 7 at the top. Unless otherwise specified in this agreement. So if the agreement doesn't specify the JPA agreement anywhere, then we
It's,
really
well,
can't go
there
in
are,
principle.
I'm sorry. There are
That's
certain
the-
times
We're looking at it.
where there is a 2/3 voting requirement for significant programs, for termination, and for relieving a board member of their duties.
So we are covered.
Yeah. My council, and again, the JPA supersedes, we're good.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay,
Thank you
but-
for having that discussion.
So my.
Andrew and I would like you to look at this language, because when we get to LAC, I think that it's important, because this is for the members of the board to vote, which is different than the members of a committee to vote. There may be more flexibility with a committee and what the voting requirements should be for a committee.
And I can tell you for our council discussion, Gabe will remember this, so my council brought up both issues, both for the board votes and the LAC votes. For the board, there was majority of more supporting, saying quorum should be, the voting actually should be the quorum of the board members. But a council member also suggested for LAC, it should be super majority, but we outvoted. So this is not a Los Altos recommendation. Pete Daly and I were able to convince them not to do it. So that's where we ended up with LAC, but there's another city that suggested it. So it's something that we'll discuss.
So question when we discuss it later on now, that if we keep majority of the body for LAC, because that's where we have flexibility. And I personally can see that may make more sense, but then the same night, if you don't have majority of the board present, then the final letter is still going from cities without a majority vote. Just wanted to highlight it right now. That's it.
Yes, I think that's an important point.
Okay, thanks. What's the super majority of 14? What's that? Is that 9 or 10? 2/3, 14, 4 choose 8.
Yes.
Nothing. Carry over.
Oh, it's 10. It's 10.
It's a good word, majority, not for LAC.
Super majority is 10.
It's 10. That's a lot. But we only have 10 people show up.
Yeah.
You never gonna pass it.
Right, one is 8, so that, so it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't even start the LAC meeting last time, because I didn't have quorum. And then there was this confusion, can we count JR, who was virtual within the county and noticed?
Right, I remember that.
And because Shani was virtual, Jenny was virtual, no, but you were not there, Jenny.
No, I was
Yeah,
not.
No, you were not even there. You were not.
We couldn't ask you.
So we couldn't ask you, so I was asking JR, because Nisa had stepped out, I'm like, JR, you're the only attorney that I can turn to. What happened?
Yes, no, JR's like, I'm fine.
And can I count you for quorum, because you are noticed and in the jurisdiction? And the others were saying, no, you can't count him.
No,
And
if,
I was
if it's
just like,
under the regular teleconference rules,
The regular rules.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Under
a person
regular-
can be counted.
Yep. if they're in the, it's a
Yeah.
If you comply with the rules, then by.
can you do me a favor, please? Send Shali, Nisa and me an email to that, because that will happen again in LAC.
Because they will continuously go to the San Jose conference room.
Yeah,
They will.
they will, those two guys, San Jose, they're not showing up, but San Jose and JR Cupertino, they show up in San Jose remotely, which is within the county, and they're good at showing up. They are. I mean, San Jose said last minute, we can't come, so we knew they're not coming. So they
Okay.
will be good. We will know But somebody else will cause confusion because every city does city meetings differently. Confusion is not because somebody's wrong, but because of the way we all handle our cities. So that
Yeah,
would be helpful
lawyers
if you
are-
have that email and you can.
Yeah, lawyers have differences of
We
opinion,
agree
but
all the
you're,
time on everything.
Yeah.
what is
But
quorum
to
under?
bring it back, I'm gonna bring it back, Jenny, for the last discussion, and we may be jumping ahead,
No,
but I
well,
think it's relevant to this section.
Right, there's no, for
Go
me,
ahead. I
there's
want
a,
to bring it back.
for meetings, we are asking for, well, we have a recommendation and we're hoping that you endorse it. So for a long time, lawyers always used Robert's Rules of Order, but it's more, I think, current, more accepted now that we like Rosenberg's Rules of Order. So are you amenable to us changing the reference?
Okay, nodding. Yep, we're good.
Okay. I wish they were all that easy. Okay, then for the next article, Article 6, committees. The first one is the request that Palo Alto made during the adoption of the JPA. They would like to revisit working committees and put working committees in the bylaws. But they did not renew that in comments during the time to provide feedback to the bylaws, correct, Andrew?
That's correct. They didn't submit
Yeah, but
anything
we
else.
did say, right, but we did acknowledge that we already had these comments. It was already included before, so that could be why they didn't include it again. So we should consider it.
It's not, it's separate from section 3B, other committees authorized.
Did you hear that, Jenny?
No.
Section 3, other committees authorized, B allows the president to appoint such committees. Can it be included in there?
I see what
I
you're saying.
remember the working committee model that Ed Chicago.
Yes, and I guess to one of the things I was thinking about is a very highly developed
Jenny, we can't hear you.
Valley. Did we lose them?
Jenny, we lost you.
Okay, can you hear us? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding Margaret correctly, it's more in putting in the bylaws a reference to the potential for a working committee on a case-by-case basis, as opposed to including in the bylaws a fully developed working committee like the Silicon Valley Regional Interoperability Authority has.
Yes.
Okay.
Or are they talking about the, what was it, the technical committee they wanted of city managers?
No, but Ed is talking about SVRIA working committees, where if they're working on something, they pull city managers, they pull.
Oh.
It's a standing
But I
committee
think it should be a case by case
regularly.
basis.
Yeah.
I think they're.
Jenny, we can't hear. I can see you moving on my screen.
Yeah, that's what. Right. So Margaret, we agree that that's the section.
Okay, section's good, but you're saying it should be, or Palo Alto wants a standing committee?
So Palo Alto, so Andrew, do you want to go over Palo Alto's suggestion? So for example, the round table. Right, exactly. So just like putting everything that we know where they're coming from. Yeah. But I like the way Jenny phrased it. Jenny, Jenny, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Could you repeat the language you were suggesting about case by case basis?
Well, I recall when we were in a meeting talking about the JPA before it was adopted, we came up with a concept that I believe is in the JPA about a working committee that can be stood up on a case-by-case basis. And I think that some clarification from the executive committee would be really helpful because it is hard to tell from Palo Alto's request. I think they're talking about a standing committee. So
Yeah.
Does the executive committee want us to incorporate language that creates a standing working committee? Or have it align with the JPA with the working committee and maybe put a section in there so it's acknowledged, but it's not a standing committee that basically has its own agendas, meets routinely, and everything funnels through the working committee before it comes to the board.
And so section 3B explains it well already. It may appoint any such committees as necessary from time to time.
And to your point about having Palo Alto see that we acknowledge it, we could say including, you know, possibly a working committee consisting of community members and city managers. Like acknowledge that there may be cases where we do want the SBRIA type of working committee, but it's up to the case specific where we would do something like that.
Well, and that is a real distinction because SBRIA is a working committee that meets routinely, has its own agendas, and everything is presented to the working committee before it goes to the full board.
Right. Remember, that's what Ed talked about, Jen.
Yes, but that's a standing committee. That's a not one that
So
is.
it's a compromise that we're saying, you know, we got your suggestion for a standing working committee. We're redefining working committee to mean this. So not a standing working committee, but a working committee that could be comprised of city managers, community members. But again, it's on a case by case basis. Because there may be down the road a situation where we do want that kind of working committee.
And then the working committee is city and county staff.
Are we? It could. It could.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt if you know this, but yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that if one city suggests it, it doesn't have to be incorporated.
Right.
Yeah. And I just think section 3 number B can incorporate anything.
So do you not want us to put this language on?
No.
Okay, so Hung doesn't want this language. Do we take it?
It's too restricted. It's too.
Oh, no, so we're not guaranteeing it. We're
Right,
just
but
listing
still.
it as a possible option.
What, I think other committees is possible for anything.
Okay.
Right. Right.
So Janny, we're not going to, we're just gonna keep 3B as Margaret, Tina. So all that language I just did with working committee, let's not, so when they bring it up, explain exactly what Hung said.
Yeah, it's in the 3B, it's flexible, it's.
Okay. All right, then,
And we have a city manager's rep, so technically, whatever the working committee, SBRIA, I think Ed's concern was oversight, right? Or, you know, making sure that we don't do things that are gonna cost or, you know, be too much work for the cities or the city managers. So, I mean, that's who, like, I would like to the city managers rep to just that kind of input if, you know, we're going off the tracks.
Kate wasn't here for the yard signs.
Like, is that right? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think that was Ed's concern. And that's why he wanted some working group that had city managers and I don't know, maybe even city attorneys to kind of be oversight of us.
But it wasn't just oversight. When he came to her, it was oversight and in his mind, expertise. Like he looked at our body as just, you know, council members who may not be able to properly evaluate an idea. And so he was thinking we should get city managers and community members who are part of, like, if we're thinking about airplanes, like, that was the oversight, but also he didn't trust us to say we're gonna be the round tables.
Right.
Yeah. But what Hung is saying is, we could do this stuff, 3B doesn't stop us from doing it.
Right.
Because, yeah.
Yeah,
The board approval.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
we're good.
And I think if you would allow us, we'll just double check the language in the JPA against that language, and if we add a word or two, if we could have some flexibility to do that, if it makes sense.
And we just need to be prepared if Lydia or Greer brings it up and explain that it is covered. We're saying, you know, if a working committee is necessary, the bylaws allows for that.
Right.
So do we even have Lydia as an alternate? Probably not.
So there's no alternate for.
So we only have Greer.
Oh, but Greer sends, Lydia's been to our meeting when Greer wasn't able to make
But she's
it.
not officially the alternate.
Oh, okay.
But he can send whoever.
Yeah, he has sent Lydia, and for something like this, he may send Lydia.
Because last time there was nobody.
That happens, but they don't have any.
He was in Japan and she did not come.
Okay, then the next issue was raised by both Mountain View and Palo Alto, but I think maybe even some other cities about LAC in particular. So under committee section 1B, the Legislative Action Committee, we don't have anything about voting requirements. We have that each city has one vote, but there are issues that have been raised about should there be a different voting requirement, meaning something more than a majority, and alternative options to consider included how it would be reported, how the votes would be reported out. So that if a city did not vote in a majority, it wouldn't just be included in the letter sent of support as if it did, but there would be some delineation as to how the city voted. So we would love some direction about what to do with that.
So that, I have a strong opinion on that. The JPA and us needs to have a unified voice. How are you gonna ever get a unified voice if one, two cities say, I disagree with the majority vote, and then I'm gonna send a letter that doesn't mean anything now, right? That's when I say, we're not have a unified voice anymore.
The cities always have the opportunity to state their own case.
That's right.
And write their own letter, duplicating or opposing the will of this board or the recommendation of this board from a advocacy standpoint. So
That doesn't stop any city from doing that, right? Yeah.
but we're not the Supreme Court where we need to list the pros and cons of every, what the final vote was, who's dissenting, who didn't show up. No. So I think it simplifies the whole issue. I totally agree.
I agree with that. And also during the LAC meeting as well as the board meeting, whoever is the member from that specific city has the opportunity, and the meetings are recorded for record, whatever their position was, which could be agree, disagree, or abstain. And as has been said, they can send the letters directly. Otherwise, why even exist?
Right. Otherwise, just, yeah.
And then is it the vote of the LAC? Is it the vote of the main board? You know, it's differing members in different groups, and yeah, the main board takes the LAC recommendations, decides what the letter is, and yeah.
So we're unanimous.
I have a slightly different question of you on the LAC here. Article 6, Section 1B.
I'm sorry, just to make sure that I heard everything correctly, because some people are speaking a little softly. So we're leaving the language as it is regarding the LAC.
Yes, so
Yeah.
for LAC, we will still
Okay.
just send one letter, one vote, regardless of the votes.
Okay, different question, same area.
Yep.
Andrew, I'm trying to speak even louder, so excuse me,
Thank you.
people sitting next to me.
And would it be helpful if I would bring up the language, or no?
Sure, it might help the others. It's a very simple question, but you kind of need to read the language.
Okay.
So it says almost towards the end of the paragraph, the committee would do this. The LAC is threefold. The purpose of LAC is threefold. First, this, and then to advocate. The second is the committee would provide basic legislative information to cities with little or no legislative staff. And third is the committee would organize emergency responses to urgent issues. So the word would, and what is the expectation? I thought this is the right place for me to ask clarification on that, second and third.
Hey, Jenny, you're still muted.
We did
So my
actually
question
receive,
is,
no,
At the
to
end
give-
of
Yes. Because Morgan Hill asked, why do we have that?
So my
third-
question is. Morgan had asked, why do we have second and third? Okay, it's my same question. Why do
The
we
third
have
one.
second, which says the committee would provide yeah, okay, they are saying third, I'm asking what else?
So that's what happens currently. So the reason why we have number 2, and Los Altos is a good example.
Uh-huh.
We use whatever you prepare for LAC for OR meetings, because we don't
Okay.
have ledge staff to do that. Like, we've done that for that's why our city clerk will reach out to Shali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So you answered my questions. What is the expectation? Because my city doesn't have staff.
Right.
Just like Los Altos,
Right.
Saratoga does not have. But when I read this, the committee would provide basic legislative information to cities with little or no legislative staff. What is the expectation? The cities would reach out, or the committee has to do something? My question is on the word would provide.
Oh, so if you should proactively be sending it to the cities, because we ask, and I think it's because I was in your role before.
Mhm.
That's a good question. I don't want to impose more work on Shali, where she now has, so maybe we change the wording. You know,
Request.
if requested. For the second, Andrew. If requested after legislative staff for the period. So we would provide it if requested.
Just as if requested, or upon request, something like that.
Yeah.
The committee will provide basic legislative information to cities with little or no legislative staff upon request.
Upon request. Okay, that works. That was my question. Would provide, what's the expectation?
Okay.
And then let's go to the third, since that has been asked by Morgan Hill as well. Third, the committee would organize emergency responses to urgent issues. Again, what's the expectation?
So one example, and I'm not sure this is worded properly, but one example is, let's say we had taken a position on SB 330, like back in the controversial one, and something got changed in Sacramento. LAC could do a letter without a committee meeting, like, or former executive director would put together a letter and say, it's consistent with the position the board already approved. We want to get it this new committee it's moving to, like it moves from the Assembly to the Senate. We would send that letter without having to go through the whole LAC board process. That's viewed as an emergency where there's no time to get it to go through our LAC board process, but it's moving to a new committee or the other side of the house, and we need to get a letter drafted. You would have the authority to do that. That's what I know it happened with Andy.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the right wording, but that's what it means.
And I think that that's a valuable thing. That being said, the way third is listed here talks about the committee, meaning to me, it's the committee can meet again outside of so the way I read third is the committee can call it a meeting
Right.
and say we want to write a new letter to oppose or in favor of SB 330 because they finally fixed everything we wanted to, or the opposite. Or the opposite from that standpoint, but I don't think that that's captured. And I'm not sure how, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's valuable. I'm not sure if that can even be captured in the bylaws, because you're basically saying the president and the LAC chair have authority to write any what they'll call urgent advocacy.
That's consistent with, I think it's important to say, that's consistent with a prior position taken by the board. So you can't go rogue.
So the reason I ask questions on both point number 2 and number 3 of the roles.
And you're right, the language doesn't reflect, I think, the intent, and I'm just using real life experience, assuming that's what it means. Jani, Andrew, was that enough 2 and 3 for you to draft the language?
The two just add.
Upon request.
Second is add, but third is and I would get rid of committee. It has to be something, it has to be, the president and the LAC chair can organize emergency responses to urgent issues based upon prior,
That are consistent with
are consistent
prior
with prior.
positions taken by the board.
But then where does it belong? Does it belong under LAC?
Yes.
Yes.
It still belongs.
It
Okay,
still should be the LAC chair,
okay.
kind of, or the president, but it's basically the LAC chair has to sign off as well.
Okay.
Okay.
And then can I ask a question then? And it's really kind of a process one and whether or not we need to include anything in the section under Legislative Action Committee. So since I never go to these LAC meetings and Andrew's not been to a board meeting yet, typically the LAC committee makes a recommendation to the board. And as we saw at the last meeting, it's the board that then votes, or maybe the meeting before, the board then votes on specific legislation or taking a position. Do we need to have some sentence under Legislative Action Committee that the LAC's recommendations will be forwarded to the board for action?
That was somewhere else. I'm surprised it's not somewhere already in the bylaws or JPA, because I agree if it's not in the JPA or bylaws, it needs to be, that needs to be clearly, but I thought it was.
I'll double
One
check.
word. Yeah, if it's not, then I think we're all in agreement that needs to be spelled out.
I agree, yeah, it needs to be spelled out very clearly somewhere that the LAC recommends to the board, and the board votes, and based on that vote, the position letters are sent by the LAC chair and board president, or rather the other way around, board president
No,
and LAC
it's
chair.
your committee, but yeah. If it's not in the JPA or somewhere else in the bylaws, Jenny, that's a great catch because it should be documented somewhere.
Well, and I think it does go somewhat to the concern. There's two bites at the apple. You know, the LAC committee comes up with a recommendation and each board member then has another opportunity at the board meeting to reassert its position or try and change the outcome, right? I think that's kind of an important piece.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, because it can happen. Sometimes different members. Last week it was different.
Yeah.
JR said no to something. In fact, that was the big.
Giving more power to HCD or
Yeah, yeah, it was the HCD related thing. Two motions. JR made a motion, then Javed made a motion. Javed's motion got 6 votes, 6 yes, 4 no's, and 2 abstentions. In the board, Sheila, the mayor from Cupertino, and we were very clear in making her aware of what JR's position was. She went with the majority of the board. It could have been reversed. So I like what you're saying.
Okay, so then if you look at the
Every city
purpose,
actually does that.
the purpose is, if you then look at the purpose, and granted, Andrew and I will go back through with a fine tooth comb, but it says first, the committee would enable the agency to advocate on issues of interest in an organized, effective manner, because then I think and make recommendations to the full board, right? You could put something in there.
Yeah.
And then,
No, Jenny, I think Jenny, we can move from that because I think we're all in agreement.
Okay.
That needs to be in the bylaws. So if you can't find it anywhere else, then we
Okay.
would leave it up to you to put it somewhere.
Okay, and then can I just ask on the third item, because I know we need to move along, the committee would organize emergency responses to urgent legislative issues. It's not just any issue. It's going to be pending legislation or legislative issues and kind of reduce what the scope is.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
we changed the language, not the
But
committee.
it's not a committee, it's
It's not a
the
committee.
president
Yeah.
and black chair.
Yep, got that.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll just insert the word legislative.
okay, and then,
Yeah.
No. There's
So
more,
No, Andrew, there are 4 voices here. Let me capture that. We had a
Sure.
long discussion earlier. So point number 3, we did black. Point number 3, you choose the wording. The essence of that is the language will be changed to indicate something along the lines that the board president and
yeah, I
black
have all the-
chair.
yeah.
You have all of that, and then I agree. If you have all of that, then you
Yeah,
agree
I
with
meant that would be
Janet's
one
thing.
additional
That's
change
it.
on top of the changes you just
Perfect.
got it. Yeah. Sorry,
Perfect.
I didn't mean to read out all the other changes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, we are
Okay.
with you.
we're good. Next.
Okay,
Perfect.
so-
Oh,
You-
I have one more.
On that item,
Just on city selection.
oh, we're not, are we done with ledge action?
We are now, yes, we are done. We need to go to the
For
liaison
the
committee.
voting,
We
we're
can
good
stop
on the
it
voting.
again.
Sorry?
We're okay with is it clear what the voting will be on LAC? Still simple majority.
Yes, and consistent
Yeah, we're
with
not changing.
GPA for the board in general, yes.
Okay, so then so we're moving to city selection committee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Very simple clarification question. It says, where does it say? Yeah, second sentence. The membership shall consist of the mayor of each member city when the mayor is unable to attend, so on and so forth. When I brought it to my mayor's attention, being LAC chair this year, I would like LAC committee and also some ways help to be on the board. She said, take all three, including city selection. And I'm like, no, that's the mayor's thing. This
Legally.
The mayor can appoint and designate,
But
according,
it doesn't say that here.
state code
I know.
says that.
But this doesn't say that. I know it's, that's the law and I understand it. So should we then clarify this here? Because anybody who is not aware of the state law will point to this and say the mayor shall be, and the way I read this, and I could be wrong, but the way I'm reading it, the mayor has to be on city selection.
So the
And
mayor,
as the official person for the assignment, and for every meeting, city selection, she can send me if she wants.
so
Yes.
so maybe we add a sentence that says, you know, pursuant to state law, the mayor may designate
Yeah.
someone to attend the meetings. We have to make sure your role is simply to attend and be her proxy.
But she's given me her, as an assignment.
She will always be
We can always do
recorded.
that.
She will always be recorded as the member of the city selection committee.
So our previous legal counsel, Mary Hannah Weir, said that you can't use the term alternate. Yeah, it says
Designate.
Right,
yeah.
which is fine. Yeah, so whatever we need to do, yeah, but she
But I'm
can,
sorry,
so,
is this language, did you want to change the language? I think we captured this in the bylaws. Am I misunderstanding?
But we followed
If
the
you
state
pull
law.
up
We incorporated the state law.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
When the mayor,
maybe.
when the mayor is unable to attend the meeting, the mayor shall designate another member of the city's
The
legislative
mayor
body
can always do that.
to attend.
So the mayor has done it for the whole year ahead of
Yeah,
time.
that's
fine.
fine.
Totally fine.
Fine.
Totally fine.
Fine.
Okay, but when you see the records, her name will be there.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Now I know something.
Your
We're
mayor's
good.
never going to be able to attend, apparently. The mayor's never able to attend.
So I think we
No,
did
she
edit
just wanted
this.
to keep it simple.
So I
Her
think-
logic was, Tina, you take all three cities association. You have two. I don't want this little thing. And I'm like, it's an honor to choose folks for the other committees in the county. She didn't want to go there.
Okay,
So I just wanted clarification. I'm good. Thanks.
good, thank you.
Okay,
Jenny,
We're good.
Andrew, we're moving.
Okay, for the liaison committee, it's referred to the City Managers Association is defined as an advisory committee, and that just doesn't seem appropriate given number one, what their role is, and number two, all of the Brown Act considerations if they're a standing committee of the Cities Association. So we just wanted your approval to change that they are advisors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Just didn't want to do
Our
that.
city manager liaison is not in.
Okay, and then just a kind of a public service announcement that some comments on the city selection committee. And once we get done with this project, Shawley, Andrew, and I will be working on rules and procedures for the city selection committee. And we see them as separate rules and regulations, but we can talk about that later. And then Andrew, why don't I turn it back over to you for finances in Article 7?
Yeah, so I think we have two more issues in Article 7. Thank you, Jenny. The first is a request from Los Altos Hills to include in the bylaws the dues formula, or the formula that we use to derive the dues that each member city needs to pay.
So I don't think, and please, executive committee members, let me know if there's any dissent. But I think we're unanimous, we were last year saying we don't think the fee should be in the bylaws. We'll put it
Okay.
to the board, we'll see where they go.
Because.
Okay.
And then we would also like to strike the last line that says the dues schedule shall be revised every 3 to 4 years to provide maximum flexibility, that you can change them with each budget cycle. You can't change them without going through a budget.
Okay, and then the other issue within the finances section, or something that we could address in the finances section, I should say, and you'll be familiar with this. This is the concept of significant programs that's set forth in the agreements, which I can actually call up. Maybe that's easier. So let me share the language in the JPA agreement about significant programs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you pull that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it's loading right now.
Yeah.
We can see it.
Okay, great. So you may recall that this was sort of a late change, that for any program or activity requiring 10,000 or more in annual expenditures, it needs to receive a 2/3 vote of the members in order to be initiated. And the question we received from Santa Clara, which is actually a pretty interesting question, is for clarification how this provision regarding this brand of programs fits within the larger budget process. So, for example, one alternative is we do our budget, we do it pursuant to the normal annual cycle. Is it only if we make further changes to the budget and those changes are significant programs that the 2/3 approval requirement applies? Or is it even in the initial budget adoption, to the extent that initial budget includes any significant programs, that portion of the initial budget does require 2/3 vote? So basically, at what point does that significant program voting requirement kick in?
So the latter, I envision, and please chime in, everybody.
Yeah.
I envision that if there is a significant program being proposed, it goes as a standing item before it even gets put in the budget, for us to do the 2/3 votes if we want to do that program. Once the board does the 2/3 vote, saying, yes, we want it to be funded, then that gets put into the budget.
Okay. And we can certainly draft it, including bylaws. It's not in the bylaws as of now.
The question was, if that program is in the budget and approved by the board
Before, right?
before, without going through, and you mean.
It shouldn't though. It
It should-
should
it
not
should-
make its way to
to
the
the
budget,
board.
and
Right.
Charlie can,
Without, yes,
manage
then that's
it.
the problem,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Which is actually a 3-month process, right? Because in month 1, we go to the city managers. In month 2, it's the first read for the board, and in month 3 is when you vote on it. So this major program would have to happen before month 1. We'd have to talk about it, decide, vote on it, then I would put it into the preliminary budget. That I
So
would
that
present.
vote needs to be 2/3.
yeah, not the budget, but for the
Not a
program.
budget, but that,
But that's an interesting thing, that it's like, okay, we passed the budget by majority.
but this has to be.
But this happens before, so for
Before.
this specific program, let's say, I'm gonna use roundtable because this was also another Ed Shikata idea.
Okay.
So let's say as a board, we want to revisit the roundtable, and it's gonna cost $15,000. Then as a board, Charlie will have us first decide, do we want to do the roundtable? That requires 2/3. If we decide we wanna do a roundtable, then when she does the budget, then it's already there because it's approved by 2/3, and then the budget is simple majority like normal, because we already had the threshold, yeah.
When I read this, I saw it as kind of a mid-year budget modification of a large percentage, like, oh, we get, we approve the budget in June, and all of a sudden we get to September, and it's like, oh, we've got this great idea, and we don't want to wait until next year's budget. So
So let's say mid-budget.
that's how I read it as.
Let's even under that scenario, Larry, mid-budget, let's say we come up with a program idea, right?
Yeah.
You would still need to bring the program idea to us first to approve it by 2/3 before you do an updated budget.
Right.
Right, and that's all I'm saying is, I saw this more as not dependent upon any budget. It's kind of we've got a good idea and we want to do a mid-year budget modification on, okay, we have X amount in reserves, and you know what, we should kick off this program. We can't wait until the next year's budget, so.
Right, yeah.
I think we're on the
I get
same
it.
page, but I didn't see it in any way linked to the budget.
Right.
I saw it as we want to, whether or not it's pre-budget year or mid-year, after we've approved the budget, is starting a program. I'm fine.
And I would imagine that as fiduciaries, if we got a proposal for a program that's 15,000 or more, and we look at our budget and we can't afford it.
Right, and that's the whole,
Yeah.
yeah.
So my question is, and Jani probably has the answer, I'll just leave it at, do we want to include tie it to the budget somewhere in the bylaws? I'll leave it at that, but listen to Jani.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Well, I just wanted to make the point that I think the concern was that the budget could be a loophole, that somehow the board could push through a significant program with a majority vote by adopting it in the budget. And the request is really
And exactly.
to clarify that no
And
matter
that's why
what.
we just talked. Exactly. And if you think that we need to add language to this section that makes it clear that it's a two-step process, so there's no way to circumvent it, then I'm fine. I think we're fine with that. But nowhere are we saying we're gonna just drop a special program in the budget without first securing the 2/3 votes.
And then to raise another
I
issue.
think it
oh,
is true.
Sorry, go ahead.
And
No,
Hugo
go
was
ahead. So
saying
just
she
to-
thinks it would be good to clarify that.
Okay, yeah, and one other potential issue in this area I just want to flag as well is that this just refers to any program or activity that reaches this threshold of $10,000 or more. I don't know whether we want to attempt to define it in a way that excludes normal operational kind of expenditures, such as your consultants, for example. I don't know whether that would also be something
We
subject.
want you guys to spend 2/3. And I don't consider, I mean, I'm indifferent. I looked at Tina, Larry, Hung. I don't think we view you guys as programs, but
Right. These are normal
If
operations.
if he has brought it up, Andrew, what I appreciate with this open discussion, and thank you, Nisa, for entertaining that. Like we do in our city, think 5 years down the road, unknown faces. We all get biased, positive bias with people. That's a fabulous team where we are functioning beautifully. Every city has patches where you are kind of like, oh, we all disagree. Let's just leave it at that. So think ahead. If Andrew has brought this up, if he wants to add a sentence somewhere to clarify that, it's not going to hurt us. That's my reaction.
yes. Clarity is good. So we'll leave it up to both of you to draft the language, just clarifying that it doesn't include consultant.
Or doesn't include normal operation costs, so, yeah, something.
Broader.
Yeah, broader.
Okay,
Like, for example, the website update, I was just thinking 10,000. Website update, there's an ad hoc committee when it has to go. Let's just hypothetically say, Larry decides, oh, I got this great place. And by the way, he also pulled me into that team, so I'm there with him. Like, oh yeah, I like Larry, what he's saying, great, fabulous website. Let's go with the $11,000. I'm just throwing that idea that as such, we just went with the thing, but then when it comes back to the board,
It's 2/3.
it is 2/3.
Right. Yeah. So keep it under 10.
Exactly.
We're
okay,
good.
It
so
might not be that much, but go.
okay, so I think we are all the way through the comments. Janet, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
Oh, great.
Nope, we did it. We did
You
it.
did it.
Yeah, good job, guys. Any last comments? Wrap us up.
So I do think
Sincerely.
we would like some direction on what to present. Do you want us, for transparency, to have a strikeout and a clean? Doesn't seem like we have any place where we have
Yes,
options.
yes.
Yes,
So
yes
I-
to both.
Strike out
One
and
last
clean as
question.
part of the packet, not just the presentation.
So I have one last question. Does it anywhere say if this bylaws conflict with the JPA, the
Great.
does it say somewhere?
If it doesn't, great, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's add that, please.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can certainly include that language.
Perfect.
because, future board may say, we want to change this and change that, but if it conflict with the JPA bylaws, they'll have to reference that.
Well said. And that reminds me, remember in the old bylaws for the unincorporated association, they required any changes to the bylaws to go back to each member council? we changed that in the JPA, but I think it's worth putting that language in the bylaws as well. So it's clear how you amend the bylaws.
Right, that the board can amend them instead of city councils.
Yeah, right, just the language from the JPA, because the old bylaws had required that it had to go back to all councils.
Right,
We
right. And this
changed
is
that in
subject
the
to board
JPA.
approval. Yeah.
And Andrew, does that have the 2/3 vote? Is that 2/3 vote?
Well, I mean, subject to our discussion about voting requirements, I don't think it would be 2/3 anymore.
It's simple. I mean, that's what's happening next week too, Johnny. And we're doing simple majority to approve these
I don't-
bylaws next
Well,
week.
the old bylaws said 2/3. So do you want us to change that?
Everybody in agreement, simple majority?
What does the JPA say?
The JPA
Does
does not
JPA
have a
require-
voting requirement, but the unincorporated association bylaws does have a voting requirement that it's, let's see, with 2/3.
Yeah, but wouldn't it go back to the 9.4 rule?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we stick to a voting consistency and
Yeah.
do simple majority.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we would
I
take away the
stick with what
2/3.
Yeah, but whatever the JPA calls specifically to be supermajority, I am inclined to keeping only that at supermajority. Otherwise, what would happen is the bylaws will keep on getting tweaked over the years for more and more things to be pulled into supermajority. For example, black. Seriously.
We're
you're
gonna
right
do
there.
both adoption and amendment is pursuant to 9.4 because it's a decision of the board and that's why it's a majority.
Perfect.
Yep.
Johnny. Okay, we're gonna close this. Any public comments, Shelley, on this item?
No public comment online.
Do you need an action? A motion? It's an action item. Do you need a motion or no?
We
No,
do.
you just
and
provided
so
us
next
with direction.
We don't need a motion.
No.
And then we're going to get this out to cities. When did we say?
So May 9th is the meeting.
But we said
So
we would get it out to them.
First or second, I think is what you said.
Yeah, we give them a week to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, closing the item. Moving to the
Yeah,
June
just for
13th
reference.
and this.
Yeah, so in the prior emails that we did send out to all the folks, we did say we would distribute the proposed bylaws on April 30th.
Oh, perfect.
So early next
Is
week.
that an issue? Are you both okay with that still?
I think so.
Does that date still work for both of you?
I don't know, Janie's smiling at me.
No comment. I smile.
Okay, so can you send it to me the 29th, because on the 30th, I think the night of the 29th or the 30th, I'm going to Atlanta for my niece's graduation, and I'll be back on May
We
1st.
can send, Charlie, we can send it out so that we can have the 30th to work on it. We can send out, you can help us with the, how to email it.
Yeah, if you can just give us all the email
And
addresses.
what we're saying,
Yeah, of course.
and I think you don't need the memo, we don't need the transmittal, we don't need the staff transmittal. All we need is the red line and the clean version for the 30th.
Okay, with
Right,
a,
okay.
with a short email about, okay.
Yeah,
And just to clarify, we don't want to send it to the alternates, right? Only to the board members?
no, do we normally send it to both
It
boards?
depends on what it is. So we don't always send everything to the alternates.
I don't know, the more the better, right?
I'll send it.
The more the
Yeah.
better. Then do you want to,
I don't care. For things I'm like,
okay. Then do
For
you
this,
want
I would send it to the alternates.
alternates?
I would send it to the alternates.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know who's gonna show up.
Yeah.
And if they're not, if they haven't looked at it and start raising questions, they at least had a chance to look at it.
right, good point, because we don't know who they're sending.
Right.
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, and
June 13th event, I already covered it. Thank you, guys. I already covered it. So for this item, I guess we could do the motion here. I'm gonna do it as part of the June of the agenda discussion. You know what? Let's pass on this. I already covered it in the president's update. So let's move to number 5. Potential speakers. Shali, this is you.
Okay, so in your packet, you would have seen a speaker request form from Director Bell about Mwendo. And then there's in front of you, in hard copy, keep your copies over there. There's a speaker request from Tyler Taylor from Successful Aging Solutions and Community Consulting. He didn't get it to me until yesterday, so it's not in your packet. But this, I guess, is kind of feeds into the discussion about the board agenda. We're considering him for the May agenda, so I wanted you to read what he would be presenting about. And then those are the only speaker requests.
And for Bell, we already said we would offer the Morgan Hill
Yes.
date to him because he lives in South County. And I know Moeno, we all care about water, but so I think it would be a good meeting for Bell. So that takes care of Bell.
Yeah.
August,
Yeah. Okay.
no,
Whatever,
Yeah.
August meeting,
yeah.
that's.
And we had already said at our last executive committee meeting that we wanted to do seniors. And so Charlie worked on it with Steve Preminger. And one of the recommended speakers was Sourcewise and what's it called? Sassy. And so Charlie asked who would be the speaker, to describe what he would cover at our meetings. This was very, he gave us a whole summary.
I just wanted you all to have it.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And I have confirmation that the county executive cannot make it in May. So I was actually preparing two alternative agendas for you. So yeah.
And we'll try for James in September with the city managers, because we're gonna do rural metro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fire chiefs and all.
So who do we have in May then?
So so any questions, so there are only two Charlie wanted to raise with us, Bell and Tyler Taylor. Any questions, comments on this item? If not, let's do public comment.
There are no members of the public online.
Then we're closing this item and moving to number 6. We'll start with the LAC agenda.
Where is the lack of cheese? That's what I'm trying. Okay, thanks. So, number 2, Shali, I wanted to check with you. What is number 2, the president update?
Sorry, I meant to say, if you wanted to put the LAC chair update, that's you, sorry. It shouldn't
Okay,
be president.
I can,
Do you want to do a LAC chair update or no?
there isn't really anything on that. I wanted was, actually, we can do it. Like
Okay.
chair update can be the letters,
Yeah, what letters the board approved?
yeah, the letters approved by the board,
Yeah,
and also the letters that were sent, which is the same
yeah.
in this case. So letters approved by board and, sorry, I have to write it, otherwise I forget, letters sent
Yeah.
by board president and LAC chair. And that's pretty much it. And then number 3, I requested Nisa, since she had been in Sacramento last week, that if she could give an update to, can you call it CASCC rather than legal?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure what to call it. So update on Cal City's City Leaders Summit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Cal City's one word?
Yeah, CAL, yeah, both Cs are capital.
Got it. And all one word, okay.
Yeah, one word, both Cs are capital, CASCC. So, she can talk about the bills, and what happened and something like that. So I was thinking, keeping 10 to 15 minutes for that.
Keep me on a tight time.
5
minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes for her, but there'll be other LAC members who will be, I won't say 15 there, but top 15 for the whole item is something that I'm planning for.
Okay.
Because there'll be other LAC members who were there in Sacramento, and it would be rude to not get their input. And Lisa very graciously said she'll limit her comments to 5 minutes, but I think this would be very, very helpful to have LAC. And that's why offline, when Shadi, Lisa, and I met in the last month, couple of times, I think we talked about it, that we will, at LAC meeting, we will not have any speakers in May. And then moving on to item number 4 within LAC that day, tentative list of bills for LAC, consideration, discussion, possible action. So my I'll tell you my plan in a second. The couple of things that I need to keep in mind, the one is I got feedback from Rob Moore from Las Garas. He wanted to include AI bills. And one thought was, when the three of us were working earlier, that once the AI bills get sorted out a little bit more, maybe have conversation on that in our August meeting. And I can work on that offline. There are some ideas that were given to me, and I thank you both for that. And also thank any other feedback from LAC members, a couple of folks that I need to ping. In June, this I just sorted out 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago. We had, Larry and I were at our SPCE exec committee meeting this morning, and well, it was early this morning. Prior to that meeting, I got Monica to myself, the new SPCE CEO. She finally took effect April 1 officially, she took over. And Benna Chang, everybody knows the LAC person there. So I asked both of them if they are available for our June LAC meeting, because the climate bills, there's a lot going on, a lot of movement happening. And Benna even presented something after my conversation with them in the exec committee meeting there today, what's happening there. But in June, to have Monica come and address the LAC committee, and for both Monica and Benna to talk about some of the climate bills so that everybody can be educated. That's the best we can do. And SVC is so close to Cities Association because they came out of this body. And the second part in mind was that very evening, right after LAC meeting at 5:30, we have the event. And that would be fabulous introduction for Monica Padilla, the new CEO, to meet all city council members, because that's twice in the year that then we have all city council members show up.
Yeah.
So they have tentatively said yes to that, and they're like, send me the details. I'm like, I am the detail, I'm the LAC chair, so you want to come and speak? Say yes, and I won't hold you to it, but if you are a tentative yes, at 2 o'clock, I will share it with the exec committee at Cities Association so that they are happy about this, and so we will follow up if that works for everyone.
Yep.
Okay, so that's how kind of the different pieces of the bills. So in May, I will pretty much continue with the list that I had sent to people for the last meeting. And if I need to tweak something with updates, I saw the list of hot bills. It's much narrower. Nothing new has shown up for Cal Cities. So I need to work with you offline as well. I need a little help.
And in my update, I know the 4 bills I'm gonna cover. Because it's the 4 bills that the Cal Cities board spent a lot of time debating.
Okay, but if you can send me that so I can have them, you speak about it that May meeting.
I don't think we want to have LAC take a vote on those.
Oh, okay. But then I would like to know not to include those.
Yeah.
Either way, it would be good for me to know to include or not to include.
Okay.
And then there are a couple of other persons that I can talk to, making sure I'm not breaking the Brown Act for LAC.
Okay.
And then I'll figure out the list of bills.
Okay.
Which may change till the last minute, and we have always kept it open-ended with the LAC members. And I think that's pretty much it. What else is?
So this is for the board.
No, I'm looking at my LAC agenda. Sorry, I keep on scrolling back and forth. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Any questions, comments for the LAC
Yeah,
agenda?
so as far as for the letters that you've sent, what are those posted on our website or no? I know they used to be.
So we used to post.
And-
And that may be our fault in not letting Tina new to this.
Right, and I just realized that it's like, oh, because when she talked about, oh, here's what letters the board approved. It's if you can, and I know but whether or not you can deal with the current website, but we used to post them, and if you can, it's probably good to say, if we get it back into that process of, here's our 2024 pledge, pledge position, then it's something else for you to point to that's like, okay, you can always find them, the final letters here, because it's also having the LAC committee take those letters back to their conceivably to advocate.
Thank you, Larry, because this was the process that I am not, that I'm still trying
I
to
don't
ask
even
this.
know where on the website.
Yeah, I had no idea,
It's
but
it's under advocacy, but
Oh.
it hasn't been updated since 2021, so.
I'm glad you brought that forward, Larry. Hey, who was the lecturer?
Who Hey, you and me both, but I just thought about, like, oh,
Thank you.
could we do that from a city standpoint, that there's, if you go to our city, all the letters that I write for advocacy
Right.
are all on one link that they can, here's everything I've written this year.
That's a
Sign.
great resource. I'll keep sending people back to the website.
Yeah.
I love
Great
it.
idea, Larry.
In fact, I emailed
I'm
Shelley.
gonna move us
Yeah.
unless it's relevant to the LAC
Yeah,
agenda.
it is what Larry has brought forward.
Okay.
Quick question. I know we have moved past that agenda item, the bylaws.
Mhm.
Do we need to capture this somewhere?
No, no,
Okay.
that's trifling. No,
Okay,
definitely not. One, so those are the two reasons why I'm suggesting taking it off the agenda. Time-wise, I was saying, I prefer for us to end at 8:45, then go past 9 again. And then the addition is the addition we already talked about, which is for the June 13th event, adding an item asking for authorization to spend up to $1,000. Is that still reasonable, guys, for the signs?
That sounds
We're
good.
still, yeah, based on what they told me in Sacramento, I think that should be enough. But
May I, so,
so they get the CASCC event complimentary. Cisco is paying for it. I think the most it will be is $25, and that's to cover something Seth mentioned. But Cisco is providing the food.
and also, I spoke to Margaret, about her doing her MTC, wrapping that up.
Right.
She said that she would like to see if we can get the VTA on the agenda. Because there's a VTA transportation
For
measure.
2026 now.
Is it for 26 or for 24?
26.
It's for 26.
Yeah.
Okay, because.
No, we should put VTA, not for this meeting. I think we give Margaret her time. We owe it to her. We've moved her 2 meetings.
Yeah.
But I do think we put VTA on the list for future meetings. We talked about this the last time. We were like, transportation isn't really one of our priorities, but they're one of us, potentially an associate member one day. So yes, we should put
the order. So right now we have the older adult program that's kind of high up in the agenda, and then after that we do JPA stuff.
Right.
And I was wondering, because I don't want to, sometimes when speakers go over, we end up truncating board business a little bit. And I thought the older adult stuff, it also includes an update from one of our regional appointees, Matthew Hudes. So would you want to switch 5 and 6? So that we can definitely get through our
So
stuff.
I think different, and Gabe being our city manager, I'm curious to get his take. My practice has always been, you get the guest speakers to go first, so they leave.
Okay.
And staff, we always, and then whatever business we can do amongst ourselves, we leave that for last.
Okay.
I like that in principle, but then I think we need to, last meeting was a challenge because the guest speaker, there were 2 speakers, one took the time times 2, that both were allocated. And I will speak frankly, most of the board members were unhappy with that. And then I was scrambling to put the LAC bills there.
Right.
Because we were forced to vote on it. And I know some of the board members felt uncomfortable voting without having the time to answer questions. So if we give guest speakers time early on, then we say, okay, hard stop at 8:30.
No, and I was texting with Shelley. I managed for this particular item, the housing bond. There was no good, I agree. So don't get me wrong, I will hold our speakers like I've done before this last meeting to the time allocated. For this particular item, I actually knowingly let it go because it was so important and I knew he hadn't gotten through a lot of the sections that needed to be covered. So that's why it went long. I don't think it's indicative. We have had like 4 other meetings. Like, I think this was an exception and I don't think we should flip the apple cart just because one meeting went too long.
Yeah, but we need to be clear, because I saw the room, I read the room.
Right.
People were very unhappy about
Yeah,
it.
no, a couple of them, Mark even said to me half jokingly, now I have to drive down to Morgan Hill, right, you know, so yes, the message was well received that we should try not go past 9.
And there's
Yeah.
one thing I forgot to add, is the LAC update to the board agenda.
Even more reason to drop the CBRT.
Not just the lack update.
Because you're gonna, that's a
We
voting
need to-
item.
Yeah, it's a voting item. It's
Yeah,
not just an
No,
update.
I know, that's what I'm calling it. but
Oh,
yes.
okay, thanks.
But yes,
Thanks.
I'll rephrase it.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you, sorry, can I just ask real quick? Can we do the LAC update before number 7, regional appointee representative update? Okay.
Yeah, I think because it's a voting item, we
Yeah.
should do it before.
Okay, so we're keeping the order. So what we have is consent agenda, president update, MTC, resources for programs for older adults, JPA. I'll do LAC
Yeah.
and then do the June 13th event after.
Okay.
So that Tina has her time to do her letters.
So it goes JPA, then LAC,
So do
then.
JPA, then LAC, then do the June 13th authorization for funding.
Gotcha.
So we move number 4, 5 moves up to 4. JPA moves up to 5, and then 6, 7 are LAC and June
June 13th
event.
event. Yeah, perfect. And then we're still waiting to hear from Vicky.
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if I can help.
Okay. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask you, Sergio Lopez is also appointed. But I don't,
2 reps.
we have 2 reps.
Then we invite both.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And is Sergio on LAC? He was there the
He was there last time for Anne. I think he said he's there for Anne.
Okay.
Yeah, so Anne is the LAC member.
That's what I thought.
Alternate?
Yeah.
Okay. No, and we're wrapping up, but any other questions or comments on the board meeting? I think we still have quorum.
So do we have to vote, to approve?
Yes,
them?
so, but we have quorum if Hung needs to go, but yeah.
Okay.
Move to approve the board and LAC meetings with the amendments discussed.
Yeah.
Second by Larry. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Sorry, who made the motion?
I did with Larry second.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you. Take care of yourself. Take care of you. Oh, good. Okay, future meeting topics, we'll waive that. City managers update, Gabe,
Nothing to say.
Sally.
I don't know anything right now.
Perfect. So we will adjourn at 4:10 PM. Thank you guys for sticking with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thank you, thank you. See you, Jenny. I'll save your seat.
Good job on them.